20 minutes left here with Macon County Sheriff Tom Schneider and Howard Buffett talking about the public safety tax, talking about law enforcement in general. I want to go back to this subject we started with at the beginning of the hour, talking about some of the areas that you've traveled and some of the things that you have run into in your travels, trying to do good things around the world, and the American perspective. You were incarcerated or put in jail for a small amount of time. Where and when did this happen?
Well, I was arrested in Bosnia in February of '97.
And then we've got to think back about what that part of the world looked like back then.
So it was the end of the conflict, more or less. There's still a lot of tanks rolling around and a few bullets flying from time to time. And I've been detained in Congo for a few days, not able to leave the country. And I've had a gun put in my chest in a few places, Central African Republic, Ethiopia. And, you know, it really gives you, it enlightens you in terms of what we take for granted. Where we do a lot of work in Congo, it's considered the rape capital of the world. They've had 6 to 7 million people die from the conflict. And when you say that, you know, that's because they can't get health insurance. It's because they can't get food. They can't get, you know, it's a number of things. But if you live in that community, in that area of Congo, you know, you don't know as a mother or father that when your child walks out that door, if they're fortunate enough to be able to go to school, that she won't be raped. And you don't have that sense in a country like the United States. You may have neighborhoods you don't want to go into in specific communities, but you don't, I mean, people walk down the street. You drive down Decatur down, and all these people are playing Pokemon at midnight or 1 a.m. They're safe, okay? They're safe because you have a process in place that is properly executed by law enforcement and the court system and the entire justice system. So you can make assumptions in this country you can absolutely not make in other places in the world.
And most people would probably find that out of a movie. I mean, they wouldn't believe that is actually an existence for a lot of this world every day, just their existence.
I mean, the UN had a report, it was an interesting report, that talked about how almost all poor people live outside the rule of law. They live outside of the protection of law enforcement. So if you look at the countries, and you'll see this is a growing business in this country too, but if you look outside the majority of the countries in the world today, many of the private security forces are 4 to 5 times the size of the law enforcement agencies in that same area, because rich people can buy security. They can buy protection. Poor people can't do that.
Tom, this tax, if passed, it's not going to impact, senior citizens who have to choose between paying a power bill and buying their groceries or the medication. There's a lot of exemptions in this tax. Basically, it's 25 cents, a quarter on a $100 purchase. But that $100 purchase does not include groceries, does not include medication, doesn't include large items like automobile title purchases. So there are exemptions here.
Yeah, that's an important message. Yeah, it's not going to affect a lot of things like with groceries, quality food, so forth that you just stated. So obviously 25 cents on $100 is what it'll affect.
Yeah.
The 0.25% increase.
And I also want to go back 15, 16, 17 years to when this was originally passed, because they were going to ask for the whole 5 cents, right?
Yeah,
up front.
Yep.
And then they decided to ask for half that. And so here we are, really 17, whatever that was, years later, back to the original number they were talking about 17 years ago.
Yeah, and let's look at, too, what unfortunately got us to where we're at. They lowered the levy, the tax levy, for 3 years in a row. And people say, well, why did they do that? Well, they did it because they were trying to do what was right by the taxpayer dollars. It's cost us now.
Well, it's definitely cost. And I just think in areas, I'm all for government learning how to cut and live within its means. I don't know anyone that really doesn't feel that way. Agreed. But when it comes to law enforcement and giving you the tools, and you've been blessed by having this man support you guys were out in the county, when we get 8 inches of snow and school buses can't get out, you guys were out there in like Caprices or whatever it was that you were driving. You didn't even have 4-wheel drive.
The state police, and they do a great job. The city of Decatur, chief guests, and there's officers. I don't want to sit there and push them aside. These people are doing a phenomenal job, and they are representing Decatur the best that anybody can represent them. But out in the county, when we were on some of these different areas where the snow was so bad, it was only the Raptor that could get to those locations and nobody else. And they were picking up these stranded people as we were going along, leaving the vehicles behind.
But you weren't out there on tax. I mean, that was because of an individual donating those vehicles, not because you were just sort of buying, state of the art with tax dollars.
We would have, you're 100% correct. We would not have had that. We would not have had that equipment.
No, I just say, Brian, a couple of years ago, I was out with Deputy Roseman in Macon, and we got a call of parents with about a 2-year-old child that were stranded. So we went down. We had to get the county department to plow our way out there. And as we were following the plow, and you can't imagine, I mean, you can't really see where you're going, and it's already starting to drift shut. And I was driving. I was pretty concerned about how to get turned around. We got turned around. We get these people in there, and it's already drifting shut. And I mean, I wasn't sure we were going to get out of there. And so, that doesn't happen every day. But when you feel pretty good when you can help somebody with a 3-year-old child and take them out of jeopardy. And, there's not a deputy in this office that would not take that risk. And I think that's what people have to realize, is that every day you go out and you take a different risk. And people think, you read about the shooting, but those things happen. But I think the thing that people don't think about is that every day you see the most negative part of society, and you have to deal with that as an individual. You're walking in a home of domestic abuse. You're walking in a home with children that are watching their parents shoot up with heroin. You make a traffic stop and kids, run from that car, and your instinct is, I'm gonna chase him, because you don't know whether that kid is running because he's got a suspended license or because he killed somebody. You don't know. So your job is to follow through and do that. And that kid can turn around and fire a gun at you. Every day you go out on this job, you do not know what to expect.
Howard G. Buffett, Macon County Sheriff Tom Schneider in the studios. You think about the United States Marshals Task Force and what we talked about Adam a little while ago. Adam might go way back to the pools at the Park District, 25 years ago when he started out his career as a park ranger.
Yeah.
This guy doesn't have a fun job. I know he thinks it's fun, which is, really, that's him. Yeah. But, I mean, you talk about seeing the worst of society. I mean, he's dealing with fugitives every day. I mean, people who are knowingly on the run from the law.
Yeah, he's got a felony caseload. I mean, that's what he's going after felons. Yeah. I mean, that's what his job is to do. And
I gave him a really big head because I compared him to Raylan Gibbons the other day.
Oh, he probably doesn't know who that is.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a guy literally knocking down doors.
Yeah, no, he is.
And taking violent people off the streets. And it doesn't matter if they committed a crime down south. They're still a violent individual roaming our streets, whether they're from here or not.
And you know what? He got recognized by the Great Lakes Task Force Fugitive Apprehension Unit as being, of course, an outstanding officer. And they got Lawrence Sturdivant, who this team that they have here is, I'll put them up against anybody in the United States.
And that's working hand in hand with all the law enforcement agencies in this area, right?
Absolutely. Every one of them is working. And they brought the whole team over from Springfield yesterday to work this case.
Yeah. And then let's talk about the courts a little bit, because I think that gets left out. Most people don't go to the courthouse unless they get called for jury duty, and most people aren't, there being charged with anything. I had jury duty not all that long ago, and I watched your guys and gals do an amazing job of making you feel secure as not only a juror, but people that are there. You can't. How do you short that staff? I mean, you still have to protect all those courtrooms, all those juries. You still have to man people coming in and out and making sure they're not bringing stuff they shouldn't be bringing in. You can't do that, right?
Some of your most important locations, of course, the entrance, and you've got to have as many people down there in case you do have an issue. But then you got to, of course, satisfy the courts regarding having the officers up there. And we're blessed to have retired police officers, a lot of them, in those positions.
Although we certainly don't have as many contested races as we used to have, there are some Macon County board seats that are up. And as you can tell by the budget cuts and decisions that are made at that level, that's an important thing to follow. You can go to the election section at nowdecatur.com, and there's candidate profiles and all the links to stories and podcasts from interviews about the election, including the public safety task. Vote yes is what Sheriff Tom Schneider would like for you to do. Howard Buffett, who's been a tremendous supporter of the Macon County Sheriff's Office for a number of years, because law enforcement, I mean, it really does matter to you. I mean, this isn't, as you said, a charity. I mean, this is the foundation of a civilized life.
Brian, if you go back, I forget if it's 15 years or what it is, but the very first contribution we made to the Macon County Sheriff's Office, well, there were two, one for the DARE program and one to support the safety tax. I'm not a big tax guy. I know the sheriff isn't, but I have seen firsthand what's required in a society to keep law and order, and that is really important. And people think of cops just being out there. Well, you give them a ticket for the red light, running a red light or a stop sign or something. But the truth is, they're there 24/7 under every kind of set of circumstances and conditions, and they deal with some really, really tough challenges. And they deal with a lot of things they shouldn't have to deal with. And today, unfortunately, you've seen a lot of negativity, as you mentioned earlier on, and I don't think you want that to carry over into not having the right resources for your either police agency or your sheriff's office.
Yeah, and the proper training, which was why and it was a long road to get that training facility here. I mean, I want the folks from Decatur to know that you were going to build this, pay for this, but only if it were in Decatur.
Well, that's how it ended up happening, actually, because it had to be in Macon County.
Yeah,
and
greater Decatur area.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where we actually kind of have a golden rule, which we very rarely ever break, and we certainly wouldn't break it for this kind of money. Which is that we only support charitable activities or investments in the community in areas where we operate. So that limits us to just a couple of places within the United States. And obviously Decatur's our home, and so it's the most important to us, and we care about the quality of life. And part of the quality of life is not just building an amphitheater or making the zoo better. It's making sure you can walk down the street safely.
Absolutely. And to the tune of $22 million over the last 30 days of private investment into this community, supporting, as you said, quality of life, basic safety. And the taxpayers are asked to spend 25 cents on a $100 pair of jeans. And I think most people, when you put it that way, would say, I don't have a lot of choice about where my tax dollars go. I don't have a lot of say in what they do in Springfield. I don't have a lot of say in what they do in Washington, D.C. But if I have a say, if I know that 25 cents is going to go to you, Tom, and the future sheriff, and be able to protect our streets, if I have that control over that destiny, I'm going to vote yes on Tuesday, because I can't support a lot of candidates, but I can support law enforcement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm appreciative. I mean, I support a person to make their right to vote and to say yes or no. I support it 100% because I believe that that's what we're trying to do. Is if somebody wants to support us, that's great, and I think we do have a lot of support out there. One of the things I do want to just say real quick is, Howard, on the amount of money that you give to the sheriff's office, he's given this to city police department. He's given a lot of money out to other sheriff's departments. So it's not just the sheriff's office reaping the benefits of Howard Buffett. 52 agencies, Howard, or more?
Well, we're actually at 63 on the K-9 program.
Yeah,
63 agencies. So it's unbelievable. All right, who's the most famous person besides yourself who's been in Decatur in connection with you?
Well, I've had Eva Longoria and Tony Blair.
I heard you had. Was Eva Longoria on patrol with you guys?
Well, we did that undercover.
Okay. Did Tony Blair run over some corn, right?
That word is not an appropriate word to use.
Okay.
Undercover.
But I'll tell you, the most famous person, I think, actually, if you look at it globally, Eva will be mad at me for this, but is Shakira.
She's a big deal around the world.
Yeah, and a few other people have been in here. But I think all of those people, it's not about them being to Decatur. It's great to bring them here, but they're all great people doing great things. Ben Affleck, I mean, they're we work with him in Congo.
How do you figure out who's really doing something versus sort of just
It's
celebrities?
pretty easy.
Okay.
No, it's pretty easy because they're personally engaged.
Yeah.
Tony Blair shows up together in Rwanda with me. Even I go down to Mexico and interview farm workers and down to El Salvador and talk about policy changes. So if they're engaged,
they're walking the walk.
Yeah, and I've been down to Colombia twice with Shakira in some pretty tough places. So they're showing up. Brian, my line is you got to show up. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't understand something unless you breathe it, you see it, you learn it. That's why I got involved in law enforcement 5 years ago, because I can't understand what law enforcement is about if I'm not participating in it. Now, you don't get to do that for everything that you want to do in life, but the sheriff here and the sheriff in Cochise County, Arizona, have given me a great opportunity to see it firsthand, and that's why I believe in it.
All right. Philanthropist, farmer, photographer.
I can't believe you got him on here without any makeup. This is the first time he's ever done an interview without makeup.
I knew you were going to end with something like that. Sheriff Tom Schneider, Howard Buffett, thank you for all you do in the community. Tom, best of luck Tuesday.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate everything.